My name is Matt Rudisell, and I've been a business owner for the past 24 years, helping others get what they want out of life. I help people and businesses grow with the help of one-on-one coaching, social media assistance, and planning that will get them to that next level. But instead of working with you myself, I developed this podcast to share with you what others are actually doing. These people are your neighbors, your friends, could also be you. But do you consider yourself an expert? Do you know someone who is? Have you ever wondered what it takes to become that person? Well, today in this episode of the Experts Game podcast, our guest will share with you the struggles, hardships, and successes they've experienced on their way to becoming an expert in their field. You don't want to miss it, so grab your notebook and pen, and we'll get started in just a moment. Hey, good morning. Welcome back to the Experts Game podcast. My name is Matt Rudisell, and I'm your host. Today, we're excited to have a very special guest with us, somebody that I met a little while ago, and I have been following his journey on Facebook for a long, long time. But his name is Eric Echols, and I just want to do a brief introduction of Eric. It's actually might not be too brief. It's some things that I found on his bio, but it starts out by saying Eric serves as the lead pastor of Freedom Bible Church in Evans, Georgia. He's been serving as a pastor in the local church for the past 24 years, and he's passionate about helping people become disciples of Jesus and leading them to fulfill their God-given potential by becoming reproducing disciple makers. And these are some things that some other people have said about Eric. He's been described as an innovative leader that uses team building abilities, creativity, and a strategic mindset to positively impact the Church of Jesus Christ. He's passionate about seeing churches focus on the gospel and maximize their ability to grow God's kingdom. He's a strategist and a coach that utilizes his gifts to develop and empower leaders. He is a communicator, a leadership coach, ministry consultant, and co-author of Turbocharged, 100 Simple Secrets to Successful Preschool Ministry. Eric loves being outdoors, reading books, having a good cup of coffee, and most importantly, following the Georgia Bulldogs football team, which is where I met Eric in the 90s. We are both UGA grads, and that is something that I know stays in my blood forever. That is something that I don't know. It's just that atmosphere that I think we both received while we were in school. That is something that we'll never forget. So, Eric, we are super excited to have you here today. I know I gave you a little bit of an introduction, but why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Man, I appreciate you having me here, and just excited to talk about leadership and one of my passions. And so I'm grateful for that. And like you said, I went to UGA, got my undergrad in marketing, and then my entire career has been in ministry, which is sometimes interesting for a lot of folks. But, one of the things that I've learned, that whether it's in marketing, business, or running an organization or running a church, leadership is key to all of it. And but yeah, I've been married to my wife for 23 years. As of yesterday was our anniversary, and we have 3 teenagers in our house. They are 16, 17, and 18, which it makes for very interesting times, and pretty much a revolving door at our house with teenage kids coming in and out all the time.
Wow, that is fantastic. Eric and I, like I said, we graduated from the University of Georgia. We met, I think, in a Campus Crusade for Christ meeting there, and developed a friendship along with a few other people. Had some great times there at the University of Georgia. I was looking through some photos the other day and actually found a photograph of, I think it was 1994 Campus Crusade for Christ retreat, where we had what we called Mud Bowl.
Mud Bowl,
You remember
yes.
Mud Bowl?
I do remember Mud Bowl. I do, and I've got broken fingers to prove it. Playing tackle football in the mud as college students with no pads, no helmets, just complete idiots. But it
Yeah.
was fantastic.
We had a good time. We had a really good time. So that is some great memories of that time, and actually some of the things that probably shaped me um, for what I was about to accomplish or do in the future. Um, Campus Crusade for Christ really molded me, and a lot of the friendships I met, I mean, are still great friends today. So I'm very excited about that. Um, why don't you tell me a little bit about why you went into that field? I think I know that a lot of it was some of the things that maybe you did through college that kind of made you pursue that. But what was that calling, or what was that time in your life that you felt like this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I got my undergrad in marketing, and that's what I thought I was going to do. And in fact, my senior year at Georgia, I had lined up two internships in the marketing field, one at Coke and the other one at Chick-fil-A. And so I had some connections at both of those. And, of course, if you're in marketing, and back in the early 90s, if you could get in either one of those
Mhm.
organizations, that was a huge accomplishment. And so I was thrilled getting ready to start those. And because of my involvement with Campus Crusade, I had kind of taken on a leadership role. I think my senior year, I served as for the campus president of Campus Crusade for the university. You have to have a student president of that organization. So I kind of got voluntold to do that. And but it opened up some opportunities where a church outside of Athens contacted me and asked if I would come and just teach their students, their youth, middle school, high school students. And I told them, I said, listen, I've got this internship. And they said, that won't compete. We just need you on Wednesday nights after you work, and on Sunday mornings, which you won't be working then. And I said, sure, I can do that. Um, well, anyway, started doing that and started teaching these students on Wednesday nights and on Sunday mornings, and absolutely fell in love with it, and realized that as much of my passion was, and much as I loved the business side of marketing, and was thrilled with those internships, I ended up calling them back and going basically part-time my senior year working at this church. And felt like that was the calling on my life, was to pour into and invest in people, um, to raise up leaders, in within the church, and to help them grow both spiritually and, in every other aspect of life as well. And so that's really where that calling came from. It wasn't until my senior year at Georgia that I felt called to be a pastor. And so as soon as I graduated, I actually started working full time at a church, and started seminary, and did that route. But it was after college that all that started, or really my senior year in college that all that started.
Well, fantastic. I know there are um, I feel like there's a lot of similarities between some of the things that we do. We work with individuals. We try to. I mean, our goal is to help them grow, help build them up a little bit, whether it be in a starting a business sense, or whether it be in a personal matter, or just everyday life. I mean, you probably have a wider gamut of interactions than I do with individuals. But I think that that's one of the things that drew me to making sure you were a guest on this podcast, because I really wanted to hear your story. I've been following some of the things that you've done the past few years on Facebook,
Right.
and I think that there's a lot more to your story than being a lead pastor at a church. you do a lot of blogging, you do a lot of videos, you're using that marketing, that you have learned over the years to really reach a lot more people than what you can reach in just a setting. I was listening to one of your messages. I think it was the final message from the Bridge series that I think you might have just finished not too long ago,
Yeah.
and you were talking about a Barna statistic or a study that had been done showing different amounts of people that are back in physical church versus listening online and things like that. And the the explanation was 30% are kind of back in physical, 30% are listening online, and 30 may not be, doing anything right now.
Correct.
But your goal as a pastor, and it's not the goal of a lot of pastors, unfortunately, but I can tell your goal as a pastor is to not just reach your congregation that might be sitting in front of you, but to make sure there's a wider reach there as well. So for
Absolutely.
that, I think that you are, the epitome of a business owner. We can't always just reach people that are right in front of us. We've got to expand, and especially with COVID and issues about people not going into physical work anymore, we have to look at ways to do that. So I think you've determined that, and I just want to ask you, what do you think is one thing, or maybe a couple of things that you feel like, in addition to that, has made you successful?
Well, I think that from a business standpoint, I think that the fact that my background was in marketing, and my undergrad, I didn't go to a Bible college and do that route. I went to to University of Georgia, got the marketing degree. Really enjoy that. Still today read leadership books and business books, and and that's really a focus of mine, because I do think that applies to what I do within the church. And so what I feel like that's allowed me to do is allowed me to relate to a lot broader group of people. I can sit down with in fact, last week I went to one of a guy that's brand new to our church, just started attending. He's the president and CEO of a huge plastics manufacturing plant here in the Augusta area. And, I was able to go and see he wanted to show me his warehouse. And so, the fact that I was asking him questions about their model and their distribution and how they were, how their processes and their, just really kind of talking about people, processes, and he was like, how do you know all this stuff? So it created this bond with him, that he was willing to talk business and then open up about more important things like marriage and family and raising a teenage daughter and things like that. And so I think, for one, it's given me a broader audience in that regard. But I also think it's helped me to, especially with COVID and everything that happened. This time last year, we weren't meeting in physically, and so we had to literally pivot everything we did in 1 week. We had to take our entire organization, everything we did as an organization, and pivot it. And I think that business focus over the years and that leadership focus really helped me be able to lead our entire organization to make the change and to make the pivot. And so, I think that the churches and the organization, even the businesses and organizations that have really, really struggled through this, have been the ones that haven't been able to make a pivot. They haven't been able to lead through change. And I think that's probably been one of the biggest successes in my journey, is having that ability to not just look at it like I'm leading a church, but I'm leading an organization. I am, in a sense, the primary leader, the CEO of this organization. Now, it happens to be a church, so our focus is different, but the result of what we're going after is the same. We're trying to
Mhm.
change people's lives, make their lives better. It may not be a product we're offering, but we we're helping them work on their families, their marriages, their lives, and which I believe, and one of the things I think is helpful is I can communicate with them and say, listen, when that gets, when your personal life gets better, your professional life gets better. And so I think that's been a huge aspect of that as well.
Wow. It's fantastic. Fantastic. Um, I know you must meet with a lot of different people, and I know every day may be a little different, but do you have an average? Is there an average work day that you can share with us?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I do. I mean, there is a typical work day, I imagine, but I think that for me, it does involve meeting with a lot of people, and the people that I meet with, the range is vast. I mean, I meet with 20 somethings that are newlyweds and just starting their careers, to people that are retired, and 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 trying to figure out what they do next with their lives, and everything in between. So but I would say that on average work week, I probably meet with 4 or 5 specific individuals, and really kind of my approach is, I know I can't meet with every single person in our congregation. um, and so there are a handful of people that I meet with on a regular basis. Now I meet with various people, that are sprinkled in, but on a consistent weekly basis, I meet with probably about 4 or 5 different people, and really try to invest and pour into them on a regular basis. And so, but as far as a typical work week, I have a staff that I lead. We have a group of volunteer elders that I also lead, so I meet with them on a regular weekly basis. So I'm constantly um, working with our staff that are paid staff that report to me, and so I do a lot of coaching with them, and a lot of leadership coaching, because they if they're especially if they're coming from the Bible school background, they don't get a lot of leadership coaching, and a lot of how do you actually develop people, because that's what leadership's all about, is leading people and developing people. And so I meet with them and do a lot of coaching from a leadership side. um, and I meet with them on a weekly basis. I meet with our elders every other week, which, like I said, they're a group of volunteer men that help lead the church from a volunteer standpoint. And so, my goal for them, what we do I take them through a book. It's either right now we're working through a book on church leadership. Um, but there'll be times where I'll take them through more of just an organizational leadership book. And so we sit down every other week, and we talk through that book and say, okay, how can we take the principles from this book and apply it to our organization? How can we make our church better as a result of what we're learning together? Um, and then of course I communicate every single week. So every 7 days I've got to deliver a 30 to 45 minute speech. And so there's always preparation for that as well. So I'm uh that kind of, I don't know if that's if that's what you're looking for, but it varies, but that's kind of the typical. I don't have a typical day per se, but I do have kind of a typical work week that happens every week.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think one of the things that you mentioned there that is key to running your life, your business, everything is systems.
Yeah,
You've got systems in place. You also mentioned Chick-fil-A earlier and Coca-Cola. I mean, those are two companies that have systems in place. That's how they thrive. And I think that that's a great tip for entrepreneurs, for teachers, for pastors, for anybody, is to just have systems in place. So,
absolutely. I mean, one of the
um,
things, Matt, that I've learned is that, whatever, whether it's your church or your organization or your life, your marriage, your parenting, whatever it is, whatever systems you have in place that are leading those, they're producing the results they're intended to produce.
yeah,
So if your life is in shambles, that means there's something within the system of how you're doing life that needs to fix. If your organization is struggling, there's something within that system. If it's thriving, what you're doing is working, and that system that you've created, that process excuse me, that you've created is working.
Yeah,
So
I definitely agree with that. I think that, it's very important. I try to implore those in some of my businesses as well that, we've got to set up a system to begin with in order to, keep the train on the track. Well, let's change gears just a little bit.
All right.
I've got a fun question here. What is one thing that most people might not know about you, but you want to share with us today? Maybe a hobby, a passion, anything like that, special interest.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm trying to think what would be a couple of things people probably don't know about me is that I spent 3 months in Shanghai, China, in my senior year in college, and learned to speak a little bit of Mandarin, which helped out tremendously when we adopted our daughter from Taiwan. So I'm an adopted parent, and so we've got our middle child is adopted, and so that's something that probably a lot of people don't really know about me. I love like you mentioned, I love the outdoors, and anything I can do to be outdoors is fantastic. Yeah, I don't know if that.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. I did know that you had a child that you adopted, and I just really commend you on that. I think that there should probably be more people who look into that option and that opportunity. It's just a great, wonderful thing. Okay, so let's finish up today with this one question, and I'm gonna word it a little bit different than I normally do. Normally, I ask, do you have any tips for aspiring entrepreneurs? But you said something a little while back that really caught my attention, and you said that in order to develop the business, you have to make sure the core, yourself, is on track first. So give us a tip that might be beneficial for those people who are possibly struggling with a business, but maybe they need to work on some other things first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that in order to lead others, you've got to first lead yourself. And I think that's where a lot of businesses fail. Not that they don't have a good model, not that they don't even have good systems, but the leaders themselves aren't developing themselves, and as a result, it pours into the business. And so that was probably one of the things that I learned early on in my career is the importance of developing myself as a leader. And which meant I started reading ferociously years and years ago, and continue to do so today. I usually read 4 or 5 books at a time, and just constantly wanting to improve myself and work on me, because if I can't work on me, then I can't work on my marriage, and if I can't work on me, I can't work on my parenting, and those actually impact my organization tremendously. And so that's probably the biggest encouragement I would give to leaders and entrepreneurs that are listening to this is work and focus on growing yourself, because if you can grow yourself, then you'll have a greater chance of growing your organization.
Wow, that is fantastic. Eric, I knew this was going to be great today. I really appreciate you being a guest on the podcast. I mean, you've given a lot of knowledge to the listeners, and I also want to just throw a big shout out to the listeners that are on the page today that are listening to this episode. If you have not subscribed to this channel on YouTube, please go ahead and do so. Please make sure you follow the Experts Game online. It can be found at expertsgame.com. And we will have many, many more of these interviews coming your way soon. So we appreciate you all. Eric, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Enjoyed it.
And I really do appreciate it. Hope you have a fantastic afternoon. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Lit. producer.